listening to StreetClothes, the podcast that takes you beyond the four walls of the hospital and into the lives of clinicians who live passionately no matter what happens to spark their hearts. Each week, we dive into the hobbies and side hustles that refuel the clinical spirit, recharge the mind, and remind us all that there's a big, beautiful world out there to keep exploring. StreetClothes, because life happens outside of scrubs.
All right, let's talk about one of the most universal and beloved hobbies out there today, playing the guitar. Whether it's an old acoustic that's passed down from grandparents or a sleek electric six string, the guitar has a way of connecting with people like few other instruments can. There's just something about the way those strings vibrate underneath your fingers, translating your emotions directly into sound. It's almost magical. As you can probably tell, guitar playing for some is not just a hobby. It can actually be a way of life. And you don't have to be a rock star to enjoy it either. In fact, over 15% of Americans today own a guitar. Many of them might be in their closet. We'll talk about that in the episode today. But this makes it one of the most popular instruments in the entire country. It's an instrument that transcends age and genre. From classical music to country, from blues to metal, there's a style for almost everyone. And for those who play, it's more than just a pastime. Studies have shown that playing an instrument like the guitar can improve cognitive function, enhance memory, and even reduce stress. There's something about getting lost in a chord progression that just melts the worries away. And you've probably seen some of those videos of folks playing the guitar in the middle of brain surgery. It does keep that brain functioning in a way that's extremely important for clinical, but then also just for mental health. But it's not just about playing for yourself. The guitar is also a social instrument. How many of us have gathered around a campfire, that cliche scene of someone playing a song, singing around the fire, or maybe it was at a house party and someone handed the guitar over to the person who could play. It's a way to bring people together, to share stories, to connect. And in today's world, with so much time spent on screens, this kind of face-to-face connection is becoming more valuable than ever. Let's talk about creativity. The guitar is an outlet for expression, whether you're writing your own songs or just strumming along to your favorite tunes. It's a way to channel your emotions, to express things that words alone might not be able to convey. We've all experienced this in our favorite guitar solo. You can almost just feel the emotion. Plus, the rise of social media platforms like YouTube and TikTok, more and more people are sharing their guitar playing with the world, creating a global community of both the musician and the enjoyers on the other end. So next time you pick up your guitar, or if you think about it, remember that you're not just playing an instrument. It's not just metal and plastic. You're engaging in a rich tradition, connecting with others, and even nurturing yourself. So whether you're playing to a packed house or just the four walls of your bedroom, those strings are doing something special. They're making life a little bit richer, a little bit fuller, and a whole lot more fun. Is there any good Kevin references to that? Kevin, Home Alone, right?
Oh my gosh, I get that all the time. There's a couple people that, one of the more bizarre things that ever happened to me was when I was early in my career. A nurse would call me back when it was time for me to come to the room, and we had speakers in the operating room, and I would hear Code Brown to room 14, Code Brown to room 14. And I thought, wow, I've got a nickname. I have made it into this little tight-knit community. I would be strutting back to that room thinking I was number one. And it was only a couple months later that I realized what a code brown was. And, yeah, I guess
you thought you're number one, but you're number two.
Yeah, there's the punchline. So anyhow, I get that a lot now. I still have people that call me Code Brown, so I've just embraced it. You know, I don't care what you call me, just call me, right?
Speaking of Brown, you know, I don't know a lot of awesome guitarists. I'm not one of these like you guys that can name all the lead guitars from like all the awesome bands, but there is a guy named Junior Brown. It's in kind of the classic country space. One of his most famous songs was Highway Patrol, but man, he was a guitar picker like none other. So if you don't know him, check him out. There might even be a family connection. Who knows?
I do know him. I was actually watching a show, and I can't remember if it was The Closer or one of these TV shows, and I'm like, who is this guitar player? And at the end, the credits on it were Junior Brown. He's on another planet, right? Yeah.
So he's one of those like just random little known guys, you know, you sit down and you're like, I had no idea he could pick like that. And it's a different skill set. You know, we'll get into hopefully some of that, you know, get your perspective on that. But so this episode is going to be a lot of fun. Like I kind of alluded to, I don't know anything about guitar picking and playing. I tried to learn it as a kid and I got no rhythm is the problem. So, just all musical instruments didn't go anywhere with me, especially the guitar, but I always wanted to know how to play. So I'll just ask you questions I don't know the answer to today, which will be fun.
And where I'm at now, and this is not the same place I was when I first started playing, but if I'm on a deserted island and I've only got to have a couple albums to listen to, the ones that I think really made the most impact on me, again, obscure guitar players, Michael Thompson, there's an album called MT Speaks, and it's just instrumental electric guitar, and this guy plays exactly like I think. I can't play like him, but he plays like I think. And then there's Larry Carlton, On Solid Ground, which made a lot of impact on me as a guitar player. And then lastly, probably the most influential, you've got to go on Amazon to buy it, but Neil Schon of Journey did 3 instrumental albums, and one of them was called Eye on You. The other one was called Beyond the Thunder, and the other one was called Electric World. And I literally discovered this from the Weather Channel back in the day when they were doing the 5-day forecast. There would be this cool bump of music, right? And I remember one day going, wow, what is that? This electric guitar. And it was just incredible. It was scratching every musical itch I have. And somebody identified it for me that it was a song off of Electric World by Neil Schon. And nobody makes a guitar sing like that guy. And that's just such a great format for him because it's all instrumental. There's no vocals on those albums at all.
Now, was this before he had done Journey or like after or during?
Of it.
Okay.
Right in the middle of it. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right. How many guitars do you own?
Only 2.
Okay. And how many guitars have you owned in your life?
I've had a couple here and there. I had a custom guitar made for me that totally stopped my quest. They call it GAS, guitar acquisition syndrome.
Yeah.
So the lead guitar player for Kansas, his name is Kerry Livgren, a little known company out of North Carolina called Zion Guitars, made his guitar. And I had some ideas. I like things about the Strat. I like things about a Les Paul. And I was thinking, how can I make an instrument that brings a lot of those things together? And at the end of it all, utilize David Gilmour's pickup design that I really liked. So I went to Zion and they built me a guitar about 23 years ago. And I've never looked at another guitar since. I have a Strat, Eric Johnson Strat, that I bought just because I needed a plan B in case my main guitar was not working because it has active electronics in it. But that guitar has been my main piece forever. So I'm kind of like that. I search and spend and search and spend. But then when I find it, I stop it and then I work on other things.
It's like getting married, right? Like you're looking, you can find the right one, and then you just stop looking. Why keep looking if you found the one you want, right?
And I wish most people were like that.
Yeah.
I'm a guitar person myself. I play guitar. I've listened to it my whole life. Talking about the Weather Channel like music, like the Wes Montgomery was always one of my favorite to listen to.
Yeah.
He's more on the jazz side, but like it's good stuff.
Yeah, if you want to listen to the people who really put the Weather Channel on the map musically, a band called the Rippingtons, Russ Freeman was the guitar player for them, and they just have this great vibe. It's a smooth jazz, but an electric guitar player that really has a good sense of melody. And I think that's what draws me to musicians. Are they producing something that's melodic or not? I mean, I know Yngwie Malmsteen can do 16th note arpeggio sweeps all day long, but that doesn't move me. I'll take a couple notes from somebody like Keith Urban that really knows how to make a guitar sing. There's an art to it that I don't know how you codify really, but some guitar players have it and others don't. Brad Paisley is an amazing technician of a guitar player, but he doesn't move me. But Keith Urban does. So I don't know. I hadn't figured it out.
I don't want to be like too objective on this, but I'm going to just say Keith Urban does not move me. Now, you want to talk about Doc Watson? That's a whole other conversation. Different style, can't really compare them, different universe. Yeah. I get it. But I want to have some opinions, and that Keith Urban one is an opinion. Anyway, nothing against Aussies. So last question before we get to the real interview. So what guitar out there is your favorite guitar that you don't own? And I mean this by like not like brand of guitar, but like whose guitar out there, I guess, is like, oh man, I love that.
Yeah, I got an answer for you right away. So I fell in love with the Gibson Explorer the first time I ever saw 38 Special and Leonard Skinner. It's a very iconic looking guitar. It's bigger than most. It looks like an aircraft carrier when you pull it out of a case. And I was at a high school party, and I remember the guy playing My Sharona in this band in the house with this Explorer, and I was just captivated by the look of this thing. I mean, it's just so cool. There's a lot of guitars out there that have really cool design aesthetics to them, but that Explorer is really something else. So much so, I did a LinkedIn video not too long ago, and Zakk Wylde, who plays for Ozzy Osbourne, he's got his own gig now, but he has a signature guitar that looks just like that Explorer. And it's something to look at.
Did you know that approximately 2.7 million guitars were sold in the United States in 2020? Surge in the pandemic. Surprise, surprise. A lot of these hobbies were spiked in the pandemic. Folks staying home. And 73% of those purchases were electric guitars. All right, Kevin Brown, the guitar episode. So when we talk about guitars, huge topic out there. So where do we start? Like if you're going to sit someone down in your living room and start talking about why you're passionate about guitars, like where does the story begin?
It started from me. Kid across the street from me, his parents spoiled him rotten. He had everything I wanted: motorcycle, Camaro, great stereo system. I mean, back in the day, people spent a lot of money on stereo systems. You don't see it like that as much anymore. He had a Pioneer system with HPM 100s, and he said, "You got to hear this album." And he put on this song, and it was Stranglehold by Ted Nugent. Never heard that song before in my life. I knew at that moment that that was an instrument that I was really interested in learning more about. So I went home after that, and I signed my parents up for that Columbia record deal where if you bought 9 albums, they would send you 7 more for free over the next couple months. And my mom was not excited about that purchase. And back then, we really didn't have the internet, Hank, to research artists, and you just ordered stuff, right? And I remembered ordering an album by Robin Trower called Bridge of Sighs. And that just kind of set me on the road. There was a lot of things that would happen later in life to kind of refine what I like, what tickles my ear, because you get 5 people in a room. You know, you're going to hear Doc Watson. I'm going to hear Noel Schoen. Aaron's going to hear Tiny Tim. I don't know, right? It's just everybody comes to the table with a set of things that they enjoy hearing. And that's the beauty of the instrument. So for me, the journey began with just hearing someone express themselves through a guitar solo. I've never been able to sing, and the guitar became my instrument for actually trying to create a vocal type experience, right? And I've always been drawn to guitar players who can really do that well. And there's a lot of them out there.
So what was your neighbor, the neighbor kid? What was his first name?
His name was Kenny Zimmerman.
All right. So Kenny's parents. All right. This is all because of you. What Kevin ended up getting in the guitar space because you spoiled Kenny. It's all because of you. But you know what? Looking back, I think it worked out well because you've obviously become passionate about this topic, Kev, over time. So it all works out.
Very passionate. And I should have said it at the beginning, but thank you so much for having me on just to talk about this subject. I love talking about this instrument. It's so amazing.
Well, speaking of the instrument, you know, guitars are probably one of the more well-known instruments out there. It's not like some kind of random thing that we've never seen before, never heard of, like a dulcimer, right? Like, you know, there's some kind of weird ones out there, but guitar is like, okay, most people know what a guitar is, but they may have this high level understanding, especially if you've never played a guitar before. But can you kind of talk us through this magnificent piece of machinery? What's involved in the guitar itself? How would you describe this from someone just using audio? Because that's all we got today.
Right. So most people, when they think of guitar, they probably think of an acoustic first. And basically, you have a large box to create some sonic space in there for the sound to bounce around. And you've got a sound hole to kind of push those reverberations back out of the guitar so you can hear it in a room. An electric guitar, for the most part, you can get into the whole discussion about hollow bodies and whatnot, but they're not loud enough to hear across the room. And they were invented basically, I think the first one was done in 1932 by 2 guys, one of them with the last name of Rickenbacker, which is actually the name of a guitar company. But it was really adopted early on by the jazz guys that were playing in orchestras, and there was no way to hear them. So they experimented with a bunch of different things to try to amplify the sound so that they could be heard when there's a lot of other instruments around them competing for that sonic space. And then things just started building and building. And then in the 60s is when it just went nuts. So basically, an electric guitar in its simplest form it's just like an acoustic, but there's no space in the guitar to resonate any sound. It's all coming from the pickups that you will see on the front of the guitar. Those pickups pick up the vibration of the string, and they send it to a plug on the side, an 1/8-inch jack. You plug that into an amp, or you plug it into a digital processor. The technology in the guitar space right now is insane. I can literally take this amazing Guytron tube amp I have, the best tube amp I've ever played through in my life, and I can record playing different things into one of these new digital devices and literally model that waveform so that I can take a little box, 8 inches by 8 inches to a bar or wherever I wanted to play. And you're hearing what that tube amp would sound like if it was in the room, but it's not. It's back at my house. So the technology is amazing. On the other side of that 1/8-inch jack, you'll see a couple knobs on the front of guitars, and those are going to be your volume and tone controls. Mine are just a little different. And then you're going to usually see a switch on the front of the guitar. And what that's doing is switching from the pickup that's in the back of the guitar to the one that's closest to the neck. So the pickup that's closest to your right hand in the back is called the bridge pickup. And then the one that's closest to the fretboard is called the neck pickup. And sometimes there's a pickup in between those two. The switch modulates between those two whatever sound you want. So if you want more of a warm sound, you're going to switch it to the neck pickup. If you want something that's more rock and roll and biting and more high end, then you're going to switch it to the bridge pickup.
Yeah. So, Kevin, that's the piece of machinery here, but I want to come back to an important part of guitar. I guess it's a part of it, but you add it on, and it's the guitar strings. This is a stringed instrument. So how many strings are we talking about? And you talk a little bit about the importance of strings in this output on both the acoustic side, but then also the electric side that you've been speaking on.
That is such a cool question, Hank, because there's some real nerdy stuff going on here. So the thicker the string, the more robust the sound is, and the more difficult it is to push that string down. So when you look at somebody like Stevie Ray Vaughan, he had this huge tone. He was playing what's called 14 strings. So that has to do with the gauge, and it has to do with the thickness of the string. Most electric guitar players use strings somewhere in the 09 to 10 range. He was playing a 14 and would tune his guitar down a half step so that he could bend that string. But the string was so thick that it could really, really resonate and sound bigger than it really was. I tend to play a size 10 string, and that works really well for me. It balances that thing. I mean, if you make a string a nanometer thick, imagine how much sound is that going to make, right? So the thicker the string, the bigger the sound. But a lot of guitar players will tune the guitar down to E flat just because they can bend those strings easier. A lot of bands do that. So how you tune it, some guitar players will do alternative tunings. That's not the standard E, A, G, B, D, E thing. They'll throw alternative things on there to do cool stuff when they're strumming and whatever. But most guitar players tune their guitar all the same way, except for metal. You'll hear a lot of what's called drop D. And what that is that top E string, they tune it down to D. So then when they play a D chord, they're hitting that bottom string with it, and it sounds huge. So whenever you listen to Evanescence, a lot of bands like that would tune that bottom string down to D, and it makes it sound huge. The guy with Ozzy Osbourne, Zakk Wylde, used to do that a lot as well. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different strings out there. Thomas D. Infels are my favorite. A lot of different companies out there with different strings. It's just a matter of what feels right under your fingers. And lastly, if you're trying to learn the guitar and you're struggling, a lot of times it's because you got cheap strings on it that came from the factory. Get some expensive ones, tune the guitar down a half step just to make it easier to push everything down until your hands get strong enough.
So you kind of alluded to this, but I just want to ask the follow up on that string piece. Is it a pretty well known accepted fact that, hey, if the manufacturer of the guitar is probably not the manufacturer that you want for your strings? Like, do people just get a lot better at making strings and then everyone stays in their lane and you connect the two? Is that kind of the practice?
Correct. You're going to get so much better strings aftermarket. They just put something cheap on there to push it out the door. Since my guitar was made by a custom guy, that's why I got the fancy schmancy strings. And that's where I learned about Thomas D. Infels, and I've never played another string. But there's all kinds of cool technologies out there. One company called Elixir, they actually impregnate the string with poly that makes it feel smoother. The jazz guys like to use flat wound strings. There's different materials. You can use nickel, you can use bronze. Just, again, whatever feels right, whatever sounds right, and whatever you're able to bend. If you're doing music that requires bending, it's just finding that string that feels comfortable to you.
So, Kev, let's talk about playing this device. I think you've described it very well. There's a lot that goes on to it in the art of the manufacturer side, but clearly, I don't know, the best or the most fun part of all this is you actually get to play it. You don't just have to look at it. So when do you play it? And, why do you play it? Are you playing, like you play in a band on the side? Are you playing at home? You play for friends and family? Kind of talk us through that experience with you and your guitar.
Yeah, so I just first started playing because I just enjoy music and I love the instrument as a way to express what I hear in my head musically. And when you can pull it off, it's just a magical thing. It's become a little bit of therapy for me. It's nice to shut the world out and not think about metal and plastic and do I have lefts and rights, thermal components for tomorrow. Did I order it just shuts everything off for a little bit and you can just focus on creating something musically. I played in a church band for 30 years and it was a very young group of people from a local college. So we could rock out there and that was fun to play in front of people. It's not really a concert. Church isn't like that, but
was the band called A Rock of Ages? Please tell me it was called A Rock of Ages.
No, but funny you said that. I do remember one particular Easter service when our leader came up to me afterwards. I thought he was coming to congratulate me, and instead he said he was pretty upset. He said, "Up from the grave he arose" is not a metal song. I'm about yes. So that was quite a journey, by the way. Playing in a band is so good to keep everybody humble because you get 5 people in the room. We've all got different opinions. And that's why bands struggle to stay together, because keeping everybody going the same direction when you like country, I like rock, you like jazz, you don't know anything about music. You just get all these people together and you've got to work it all out. That's quite a journey. But anyhow, my thing I do now is, every night my wife and I will watch a little TV just to settle down from the day. And most times than not, I got the guitar in my hand with me and I'm running through things that are vexing me right now and scale runs that I'm struggling with. And I just keep doing it over and over and over again, not plugged in or anything, because that would be annoying, but just continuing to keep that hand strength and to work on picking patterns that are challenging. And it's amazing. You just do a little bit every day. All of a sudden you find yourself a year down the road doing stuff you just can't believe you're doing. So it is a game of inches. And that's what frustrates a lot of people about this instrument. I've talked to a lot of people, Hank, that got a guitar, is sitting in their closet. It just takes such a long time to get something musical out of it. And it's hard to go the distance if you just don't, settle in and discipline yourself to do just a little bit here and there and lower your expectations.
The average price for a beginner acoustic ranges anywhere from $100 to $300, making this one of the most accessible hobbies for many out there today. And I know, and I tell the story in this interview, that 150 range was exactly what I traded my guitar for a month's worth of rent back in college. But again, that's a story for the interview. So let's talk to those people who have the guitar in the closet, because I think you're right. There's a lot of folks out there like that. I know I told you off air before we started that I tried to play guitar a couple of times in my life, through college. My uncle gave me a guitar, and this is a true musician story, even though I was never a musician. But I traded my guitar for 1 month's rent in college because I didn't have money that month and I wasn't using a guitar anyways. I was like, hey, well, you switch this and let me stay another month. But, for me, not only guitars, but all the instruments I tried, I just struggle so much with rhythm that I felt like I couldn't get over that initial hump of just, the basics of playing in general. So what would you speak to folks who have struggled, they kind of hit that initial roadblock, like you mentioned, and just I can't do this or whatnot. I don't know the way forward? Like, what advice would you give them to keep pushing through to find that next level enjoyment that really drives you from there?
Let's chop this up into a couple sections. On the
Sure.
rhythm point, a lot of people are born with talent and other people have to work at it, right? And I was born with no sense of rhythm. I remember one day DJing at a club I was working at. Nobody was there, and a friend of mine had taught me some breakdance moves. So I got out on the dance floor. I said, nobody's here. I'll just go try it. And I ended up taking out a complete section of chairs, and these two guys were watching me and just started shaking their heads. So I didn't dance anymore after that. But I think
I was expecting to hear a lot of stories, Kevin. I was not expecting to hear a breakdance story from you on this episode. But continue.
So I have no innate sense of rhythm. However, when I got into a band and I started having to utilize what's called a click track. So when you see musicians on a stage and they have an earpiece in, a lot of bands utilize what's called click tracks, and that keeps everybody on the right rhythm. You'll hear tick, 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 whatever the beats per minute, it's going through your earpiece. So you learn real quick of how far off the rhythm you are when you have to play to a click track. And then when you start getting into things like triplet delays, it forces you to play on the rhythm. Otherwise, it just creates an absolute mess. So I want to encourage you and anybody listening, if you have no sense of rhythm, that's okay. I didn't either, but you can learn it. And there's certain little tricks here and there that you can use to pick up how to stay on the beat. Playing in your living room or your bedroom is horrible because there's nobody to keep rhythm with, and it's a bad habit. And that leads me to number 2. Training yourself to play guitar makes about as much sense as teaching yourself to play golf. You're going to get a lot of bad habits, and then you're going to spend the rest of your life paying people to try to help you unlearn. So the best thing you can do, and also it keeps you on a disciplined schedule, right? Get a personal trainer, get a music teacher, and schedule it out. Every Wednesday, I'm going to be over at Guitar Center, and I'm going to get a lesson. And then they're going to give me something to work on in between those lessons, and it keeps you going. And then that keeps you from learning some bad habits. I spent the first 5 years playing my Sears Silvertone guitar, picking straight down. I didn't know that you could pick back and forth. Nobody was teaching me anything. And then I spent the rest of my guitar career trying to think backstroke on the pick. And I'm still working on getting some of those bad habits out of me. So it's real critical, especially early on, that you get good habits. You learn how to hold the pick the right way. Your hands are in the right position. You need somebody to help you.
Speaking of that last piece, just the people part of guitar playing, like you mentioned, you had the band experience, but then obviously there is a community out there of guitar players and guitar appreciators. So how have you seen your passion with guitars translate and build community in your personal life, in your professional life? How has that kind of built those bridges that otherwise would have taken you maybe 5-10 years of relationship, and then you figure out, hey, you both play guitar, and then boom, you're there?
Yeah, it's an amazing bridge builder because this generation doesn't have as many guitar players anymore. I mean, when we were growing up, if you think about that instrument, Frampton Comes Alive, Van Halen, Boston, Styx, I could just go on and on. The electric guitar, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, was the centerpiece of so much of what we listened to. Whereas now, it's just not as much. A lot of electronic stuff going on. So young people, I remember struggling with that even in a church setting. You always want to be training your replacement, right? I couldn't find anybody that wanted to learn to play the instrument. So unless it's a bunch of old guys in a room, you can typically find some electric guitar players there. But man, when you find somebody that's younger that plays, it's an instant connection. It's like we've been friends forever. And it's so exciting to find somebody that can talk the talk, that knows about the gear page and understands the conversation you can have about, what's going on in the modeling world, tube amp versus digital and guitars and all that stuff. It's an instant instant community builder just because there's so few of us these days, apparently.
It's funny. It's been a while since I was in seminary, but I went to seminary for grad school, and there was a cliche that these seminary guys every evening would bust out their acoustic guitar and go out on the lawn, and they would be playing, and like all the little girls would be around or whatever. And that was it was a cliche because it was common. Like you see a lot of these guys out there picking and trying to find the misses. I don't know how common that is on regular college campuses or not these days, but at least that was common back when I was there. On the hobby piece, though, on any kind of hobby or passion, I don't even know if you call this a hobby. You may call it something else in your experience, but getting into any of these things, obviously there's a cost. There's a time cost that you've alluded to. You got to put in the time. And if you're passionate and you like it, you're going to want to put in the time. But talk to us about the monetary cost. What does it cost to get into something like this? Like, what do those, the average guitar lessons cost these days, if you know those kind of things?
There has never been a cheaper time to dive into this thing. You can find a Mexican-made Strat for $200. You get it professionally set up, which is critical. You want to immediately take it to a professional and have them get those strings as low as they can without buzzing to make it as easy to play as possible. You make a guitar difficult to play, and you're just going to lose interest in the instrument because it's going to be a struggle. Your hands are not normally strong to do this. You have to build muscles to do it. Don't fight a guitar early on. Make that guitar as easy to play as possible. So you're talking nothing on the guitar. And then you don't need to buy an amp. Go on eBay. Line 6 makes a little kidney bean shaped thing called a pod. You can plug headphones into that thing and sound like a rock star. I was at a Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert one time. A bucket list concert for anybody that plays guitar or has remote interest in it, or any instrument for that matter. It's just incredible. And I went to the sound guy and I just had to know what's this rack you're using? What amps are you using to get this sound? And he kind of sheepishly said, we're just using Line 6 pods. So $70, you can pick those up used, plug it into your computer. You can actually play music through that into your headphones and hear yourself playing along with the band in stereo. So less than $500, you're off to the races. Lessons, $75, $50, just depending on how desperate the student is. So it really is not expensive to get going with this anymore.
I know we talked early on about what got you into guitar playing, and you had some nice memories about the neighbor kid. But let me ask you, maybe, since then, some time has passed, but your passion for guitars has only increased. Do you have a favorite memory that you'd like to share to show, again, this is a hobby, but it's a hobby that goes deep beyond just the thing itself?
That's a good question, Hank. I think whenever I've produced anything that somebody enjoyed, then it's so rewarding to me. I feel like the instrument for me, especially in a church setting, it's service, right? You're bringing something to a community and playing a small role, bringing something to a bigger room and to just a bigger calling. And that's when it's very rewarding to me. The one thing that I've learned from playing on stage is that if you're playing for the accolades of the crowd, you're pumping air into a balloon that's got a hole in it. Whether you're in sales, whether you're in anything, if that's what you're playing for, you got to wake up tomorrow morning and start pumping that thing again because it's got a hole in it and it's going to run out. So I learned real quick, especially in the church setting, right? It's not a concert. You're not playing for an adoring crowd. It's just a different vibe. And that's where I'm at now. Anytime that I can use that instrument and it touches somebody in some way, then that's an awesome thing. That's not why I do it, but when it can bring value to somebody else and they heard something that really made their day better, they really liked it, that's awesome.
I think we're going to money quote that quote and send it to all the worship musicians out there in the U.S. because that's something a lot of them need to hear. And I see Aaron shaking his head because he's a pastor too, and also involved in music too, right? Yeah.
So, I tell you a funny story. I was in practice one time at church, and I was agonizing over my tone, and I was making everybody's life miserable, and just getting all hung up on all the wrong things. The song wasn't the way I thought it should sound. And I just had this impression. I kind of shut myself up of just shut up and play. That's not what you're here for. You're not here for what would typically be considered a jazz concert where you've got all these people in the audience that are judging your every note. And we can fall into that trap of trying to create this perfect thing. And that's not what it's about. Even if I'm playing in a non-church environment, just there to have fun, I'm going to make mistakes. I know I'm going to hit the wrong fret here and there. I play totally by ear. So I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just wandering around the fretboard, hitting things that I hear in my head that I think, oh, that might sound good here. And along that journey, I'm going to hit some wrong things, but that's okay. Life is not perfect. And the moment that I try to OCD into this thing, it just takes the fun out of it, right? It no longer becomes something that I love. It becomes something to obsess over. And that's not fun.
So you probably guessed the United States is one of the largest markets for guitars, but did you know who number 2 and 3 are? Japan and China round up the top 3 guitar markets in the world. Are you surprised? Okay.
The most memorable thing that I ever did on the guitar, I was driving to church band practice one time, and there was a webcast going on that my distributor wanted everybody on, and I was only about 5% interested. So I muted the phone. Every now and then I would look at it and just see what was going on, but was really not into it. So I muted the phone, walked into practice, and started warming up. And this particular sound guy that I worked with loved classic rock. And he would work my sound out by asking me to play some cool riffs from songs that we both enjoyed. And then I would stop. He would be working the dials, and we would talk. And then he would have me do it all over again. And this would go on for about 10 minutes or so. I looked down at my phone just to see how this webcast is going on. And I see 20 texts on my phone, and they're all saying the same 2 words. Stop it. I had accidentally unmuted my phone on the way in. And I found out later that they would try to get the webcast going again when I was quiet, but then I would just drown everybody out with a guitar solo. I single-handedly brought that meeting to its knees. And it's just one of those weird things that I'm both completely ashamed that I did that, but kind of proud of it at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah. In the moment, you're like dying, but then with perspective, you're like, that was freaking awesome.
Well, that's every guitar player's dream, right? Is to be the loudest and the most like in front of you person, right? It's impossible to get a guitar player to turn their amp down because they just like to hear themselves.
Well, we do, and that is something we obsess over. Part of it is not ego as much as it is that we are fighting for sonic space in a band, and a lot of times we're working with sound people who are volunteers. And they want to turn the electric guitar down for some reason, and they want to turn the bass down. It's just part of the deal. But when you're an electric guitar player, if you look at it on a frequency range, right, you're occupying some of that same space that the acoustic is in and the keyboard player is in. And the trick, and this is where the sound people have to really up their game, is how can you massage all these places? And how do you EQ things in such a way that I can hear everybody? That's the tricky part. But yeah, we can get pretty upset. So we can go pretty nutso about our volume. That's for sure.
That's a great point. I'd love to talk to a sound guy that does sound on the side, clinical day job, a sound guy on the side. So if anybody's tuning in, Aaron's like, I do that. Well, I know you do that, Aaron.
I don't have a clinical day job though, so.
Well, you kind of do. You kind of do.
True.
We do a lot of clinical shows here. But yeah, Kevin, speaking of clinical, so what is it you do for your 9 to 5? Well, not 9 to 5. What do you do all hours of the night and day?
I have been a device rep in the reconstruction / orthopedic space for 30 years. Currently, I work for a wonderful orthopedic surgeon and support and help facilitate basically whatever he wants to accomplish, whether it's surgical, clinically, or professionally. A concierge rep, so to speak.
Dude, that sounds like an awesome gig, like a lot of work that you've got to build up to. But yeah, I mean, how awesome it is to be able to focus on a particular surgeon and everything that's built around that. That sounds amazing. So what, if anything, and this is the final question we'll ask you today, beyond some contact information for the guitar nerds that we picked here today, but what, if anything, does guitar playing and this guitar love have to do with your clinical day job?
I think that we all need an outlet. This job, especially what I do, can take 24 hours a day if you let it. And I know a lot of people that have lost marriages over it. I know a lot of people who have had cardiac surgery because of it. So looking back, if I was counseling young people in medical device sales, I would say get your order of operations right. Your family comes first. This job comes second, and practice some self-care. That means eating the right things, exercise as you can, and have a creative outlet that can shut down thinking about this job 24/7, because it is so easy to do, especially if you care about it and you want everything to go perfectly. You can spend way too much time with this stuff in your head. And I think for me, musically, again, that's my shut it all off time. We're not going to think about any of that stuff right now. We're going to do what we love to do, and that's create. And I think now more than ever, Hank, a lot of our space is turning into something that's a little bit more rote, a little bit more operational and administrative. And for creative reps, they're struggling right now in some respects because their ability to do things freestyle is not really there as much anymore. So I don't know if I'm speaking for everybody in the audience, but creative people need to create or they die. And if you don't give them an outlet to create, then we just have dark clouds around us, right? So that's been a real good thing for me. The podcast is certainly part of that as well. Just an expressive outlet to get all this stuff that's floating around in my head out and hopefully help somebody out in the process.
Well, speaking of helping people out, I got to think there's going to be audience members here that are either they're already guitar fans and they're like, man, I want to get connected with Kevin. We're just going to geek out together. Or maybe you convinced them on this episode that, you know what, they need to pull that guitar out of the closet and get back in it just to preserve that mental health. If we come across those folks in the audience, what's the best way for them to connect with you about these guitar-related questions?
Please follow me on LinkedIn and just direct message me. Again, it's like the Sahara Desert. Other guitar players that have a passion for this instrument. We love to talk about it. We love to help other people along their musical journey. Glad to help in any way possible, even walking you through some drills you can do, some things that I wished I had learned early on in my musical career. Anything that I could share that would help you just grab a hold of what really I think is one of the most amazing instruments out there that you can play.
That was Kevin Brown, a device rep in the orthopedic space, sharing his passion for the guitar. Some of the music selections featured in this episode are actually some tracks that Kevin himself recorded and shared with us for this episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of StreetClothes, where we explore the lives of clinicians outside of the hospital. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to reach out with an interest that maybe you have taken up outside your department. That's a wrap for this episode of StreetClothes, proudly brought to you by the Healthcare HQ Network. Now, get back to what moves you, because life happens outside of scrubs.